All right, welcome 8th grade teachers to the final video in the training series. This one I'm going to go over the example lesson plans, both the template, the new template that I've created for KCPS Science, as well as a written out example. And so you can find those here on the curriculum landing page. The blank template, if you click here, if you have flexibility at your school to use a template, feel free to use this one, make a copy and tweak it however you want to do that, but it is not required or anything like that. And then here I've highlighted the new example lesson plans that I've written using that new template. Now you can find it up here, but I've also, because sometimes they are down a ways in the lessons, I've also, if there was, so like week 2, you can find it's here as a reminder, hey, don't forget I have an example lesson plan. And these are really great for, you can use them as they are written, you can tweak them a little bit, or you can just get some ideas from it and kind of carry on with your own lessons, but hopefully you'll find them very useful. So I've actually written out 4 example lesson plans for you, 1 per quarter, so hopefully throughout the year, if you use those, that's 4 weeks that I've covered for you. You don't have to write a lesson plan. I want to start by looking at the blank lesson plan just so you can kind of understand the structure of it, and then I'll show you a filled out and completed one. The top is just sort of filling out the basic information. What concept are you in, teacher's name, grade level, dates and standards, stuff like that. And then when you get into the actual lessons, so this would be like an 8A, Monday, Tuesday, what's the objectives that we're going to hit for this class? And then you have essentially 4 or 5 different activities. You have your do now or opener. You have 1, 2, 3 activities. The reason I list out 3 is I really want teachers to think about, you have a block schedule. That's a long time to kind of think about doing just one thing. If you're trying to spread one thing out for the whole period, you're going to lose students doing that. So I want you to think about having smaller little sections of activities that engages the students. And then at the end, how are you going to close out exit ticket? What's your kind of assessment there at the end to kind of assess student learning? Each of these activities, starting from the do now, I want to know the cognitive lift. And this is basically, is it all teacher, is it a bit of mix, or is it all students? And there's anything wrong with any of these. It's just if my whole lesson is starting to feel like a lot of teacher, then I'm not including students in enough of the cognitive thinking. If it's all student, it kind of gives me the idea that the teacher is not really all that involved. And so you really want to make sure that each of the activities kind of changes up between who is doing the cognitive thinking during each of the activities. And as long as you kind of get like a mix of, sometimes you have teachers, sometimes it's all students, a lot of times it's a bit of both. As long as that's kind of what each lesson feels like, I think we're in the right direction. Thinking about what are the technologies or different materials that are going to be needed for this, how much time is it going to take, and then how you're going to transition from one activity to the next. Sometimes this can just be kind of a question prompt. Sometimes this could be, hey, go ahead and put this away, get out that material. And then I tried to include at least once each lesson a bring break somewhere after activity 2 or activity 3 to kind of give students a break, 1 minute, 2 minute sort of thing. And so I'll give you some ideas of those as we go on. After you do all your activities, you close it out. Down at the bottom, you have 2 more things, your modifications and scaffolding, depending on your students and who you need to be thinking about. You can fill out any information that you need there. And then reflection and feedback. So after you've taught this lesson, what did you think about it? What changes would you make? And if you fill this out throughout the year, then next year you'll be able to make those tweaks and have even better lessons. So feel free to utilize that. Okay, this is a completed one. This was for weeks 2 to 3 in the pacing guide. As you can see, I kind of filled out the top information as well as everything else. So I'll kind of briefly go over one, but you can see I kind of chose a couple of objectives from the curriculum that we're going to hit this day. And then I did a do now. I've actually pulled a video that wasn't really on the resource, but since we start by going over relative motion, I recently had seen this video of a Red Bull. He's on a bike doing all these ramps, but it's on a moving train. And so while he's going across the train, he's actually staying right at the exact spot that they're filming. So it just kind of looks like he's like this. And so the question is, all right, is he moving forward because he's going down these ramps and doing jumps and stuff? But from the perspective of the camera, it doesn't look like he's moving. So now we get into that sort of question of frame of reference and how that works. So I saw this video, I just brought it in myself, and you can do that. I've got this idea, I've done this lab, bring in your own stuff. Just make sure you blend it with all of our other resources. And then I have my different activities. So we're going to start off doing a activity from Discovery Ed, and most of the time, here it is. Sometimes I'm either like here, where I'm highlighting the title, but regardless, somewhere in each activity, I am linking to the actual activity in Discovery Ed or to Gizmos. As much as I could, I try to have these be PDFs or images, so that way you don't have to worry about getting logged in to see what it is that I'm doing, because we have coaches and admin who may not have that login, so I want them to be able to utilize this document as well, and so they can open this up and see, okay, this is the activity, and then go back and see what am I going to do with it. So that's why I've linked things. You don't necessarily have to link things unless your admin is wanting that from you. So then I explain how we're going to use that activity. Notice I don't just say, I'm going to do this activity and leave it at that, right? I'm explaining how I'm going to incorporate it. What are students doing? What am I doing? Are there any teaching strategies that I'm going to utilize for this? And so I spell that all out. I fill in my information, and then it's, all right, how am I going to transition to my next one? And this one's a vocabulary video using Nearpod. And then I'm back to doing a lab from Gizmo. So you notice I kind of did a Gizmo, I did a Nearpod and Gizmo. I'm using another resource to break up the lesson, so it doesn't feel to students like all we're doing is just discovery, right? I've implemented something else to kind of break that up and make it feel a bit more engaging. And then we come down to the closing. I have the question that I want to ask students there listed out, and kind of explain what that is. So you can kind of see how a full lesson could kind of take place. I didn't really go into it, but this is a whole lab, which I've done with students at FLA. That's really fun. So that's going to be 40 minutes. Typically, your time you're spending on your activities are not going to be like 20 would be a good average. Sometimes you might be on the 15, sometimes be on the 25 to 30. That's fine. Typically, you don't want to be doing an activity for this long unless it's something like a lab. Because easily with the lab, even though it's 40 minutes, part of that lab, the first 10 minutes is more of you outlining and guiding, and then you give them 30 minutes to work on it. So it's still kind of like two activities built into one, but you want to make sure that your times are a bit smaller. I think 40 minutes is the longest I've made any of my activities, so just keep that in mind. Oh, see, I lie every time. I did this in the other video. I have a 50-minute, another lab. So labs are the exception. But typically my activities are falling between the 15 and 30 sort of range. And then I've got my modifications. This might have to do with the technology, or hey, if this material isn't ready, I could always switch to this virtual one, and those sorts of things. Each of my example lesson plans, I have this little reflection here, and that's kind of highlighting each lesson. I kind of had like an idea that I wanted to showcase for teachers. Either it's about the labs or some of the resources. So give those a read to kind of help learn what it is that, why I wrote the lesson plan that I did. And this will give you a good idea of, some of it I've already talked about, but those are there in each of the lesson plans. Okay, that is basically it. That's an example of me using the lesson plan as I've designed, or the curriculum as I've designed it to create a lesson. You know, I'm pulling information from all these videos, Gizmos, labs, Discovery Ed, Nearpod. Like, I'm using this to create my lesson, and I even mentioned I bring in some of my own ideas, and boom, I have a full week worth of lessons just from using our stuff. So hopefully that helps you guys. I've covered 4 weeks of your lesson planning if you want to use them. And I hope this helps. So good luck to you, and have a good one.